Recently, on my drive home from work at the airport, I passed by a very angry crowd of protesters. I had to slow down and make sure I wasn't getting too close for fear of running someone over. Have you ever felt so strongly about something that you wanted to get out there and yell? Well, my name is Ian Currey and this is Thinking Out Loud. Come on, let me tell you what I think. I've often wondered how effective protests or demonstrations are. Mostly when there's a big crowd all yelling, anyone not involved stays away and only those who already agree with the protesters' point of view are actually there making a noise. Now, of course, when demonstrators get violent or major news networks cover the protest, certainly then we all know something is going on, don't we? Let me use the rowdy crowd I encountered on my way home as an example. There are several things I noticed. Firstly, they were in the road and I had to concentrate to not hit them as I drove along the busy road. Perhaps not the best place to be, although their actions certainly made me aware they were there. As a communicator, though, I had to give the group a D-. I realized there was a protest. I saw there was a sizable number of people gathered together, but I had no idea at all what they were protesting about. Because I had to be careful not to run someone over, I couldn't read their badly written signs. Additionally, the only words I heard them yelling were obscenities. While that might get my attention, I certainly had no intention of stopping and finding out if I agreed or disagreed with their cause. For the rest of my journey home, I had to think about what could possibly making people so angry on a lovely afternoon like that. Whatever the cause and whatever the core message they were so passionate about, I wanted nothing at all to do with it. These days, that demonstration could have been about just about anything. Here in America, maybe recent Supreme Court decisions, personal choices, free speech, mass shootings, unionized coffee shops, perhaps climate change. The fact that I have no idea what that particular gathering was about perhaps shows that it was less than effective at best. I'm very well aware of how quickly a crowd can go from passive, just protesting, to full-on riot too. Growing up in the Kent coalfield, there in the southeast of England, I'd seen firsthand how a strike that started with good intent and probably a valid argument quickly degenerated into a horribly violent mess that rapidly lost public support. The cause? Well, in the case of the Kent miners, was completely lost. Not because the right and wrong of the issue, but rather that the horrible tactics used to present their case. How quickly public opinion turned from supporting the miners to being totally against their protests. Protests, or expressions of support, demonstrations, are nothing new. Do you remember the story of Jesus riding a donkey into Jerusalem? As he rode along, the crowds spread out their garments on the road ahead of him. When he reached the place where the road started down the Mount of Olives, all of his followers began to shout and sing as they walked along, praising God for all the wondrous miracles they had seen. Blessings on the King who comes in the name of the Lord, peace in heaven and glory in the highest heaven. But not too long later, the crowd, apparently dissatisfied by the methods that Jesus chose to use, or being a servant and looking after the least of these, rather than overthrowing the government, were only too keen to change their allegiance. But the mob shouted louder and louder, demanding that Jesus be crucified, and their voices prevailed. As is so often the case, disputes, demonstrations and protests are not decided on the basis of right or wrong, but on expedience, or who has the most power, or the sway of government perhaps. In the end, the innocent Jesus was of course crucified, ironically not for any crime he committed, but for everyone else's. Now, given the ineffectiveness of the protest I encountered to change my mind, one way or the other, on whatever it was about, I wondered how those same people could perhaps have had an influence on me, or anyone for that matter. What could they have done instead? Paul wrote a sort of handbook for his friends to show how to live as an example that would influence those around. Instead, let the Spirit renew your thoughts and attitudes. Put on your new nature, created to be like God, truly righteous and holy. So stop telling lies. Let us tell our neighbours the truth, for we are all parts of the same body. There's a lot there already, isn't there? But the part that says we are all parts of the same body especially applies to people that disagree so strongly, but claim to be followers of Jesus. I always find that sad to see. People fighting that claim to represent a God of love, who specifically reached out to people who would go as far to have yelled, "Crucify him and have him killed." I wonder if those fights today are, in effect, crucifying Jesus all over again. Paul goes on to give some great advice to protesters and demonstrators. And don't sin by letting anger control you, for anger gives a foothold to the devil. Those people I passed on my way home certainly looked very angry, but their anger was a completely ineffective way of communicating, and actually, no matter what the cause, opened them up to things that they would surely regret later. Don't use foul or abusive language. Let everything you say be good and helpful, so that your words will be an encouragement to those who hear them. Certainly, I would have been more inclined to listen to the mob's message had it not been so laced with obscene language. Sadly, so many resort to throwing around anger to support an otherwise good cause. And as Paul was so quick to point out all that time ago, that only opens you up to evil. Sad. A good message, though, a noble cause, if you like, comes easily to the ears if presented thoughtfully and gently by someone whose character is in line with the particular cause. A demonstration of the message, as it were. Get rid of all bitterness, rage, anger, harsh words and slander, as well as all types of evil behavior. Instead, be kind to each other, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, just as God, through Christ, has forgiven you. Paul's message, especially to those who should know better, is clear, isn't it? Be kind to each other. I love that word there, tender-hearted. And despite the wrongs we may feel deserve a good yelling, actively imitate Christ, demonstrating that we indeed are followers and representatives that are capable of communicating by demonstrating that we indeed do forgive as Christ forgave. That's essential. I still have no idea what that protest that I came across was all about. But certainly, I learned something from it. Being gentle and kind, Christ-like, would have been a far more effective method. Of course, to actually be Christ-like is a full-time task on its own, isn't it? Allowing the teachings of Christ to truly influence our attitudes, thoughts, our very being, is the only way we can demonstrate His way of doing things. My imperfect demonstration of being a follower of Christ may well be slightly more effective than yelling obscenities at passing cars. I hope so. Until next time, goodbye.